Hi, I'm Tony Russo from On Death Care, and this week I'm speaking with Shayda Frost and Timothy Amoui, who are the newish owners of Lincoln Memorial, a cemetery in Atlanta, Georgia, and their accompanying, other cemeteries. They have 6 cemeteries. Lincoln Memorial is the biggest and the most famous. They inherited it from Shayda's father, Jack Frost the second, who inherited from essentially his mother, but he's from the Jack Frost the first family. And if you are in the industry for a while, you'll know the name Jack Frost, and we'll get into all of that. What I liked about this story, what intrigued me, was this kind of openness to taking it slow, but getting things done when you take over a cemetery. And they took over an old cemetery that didn't have any of the modern accompaniments. And it's a really interesting conversation because they talk about how they were able to negotiate through this. They had a lot of kind of long-term employees who had liked doing things in a certain way, and they didn't want to undermine that, but they also wanted to be able to move forward into the 20th century, if not even the 21st century. So that part of the story is great. And there's lots more. These are really, really engaging folks. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the show. Please stick around afterwards for a little bit of a recap. But right now, here are Shayda and Tim. Well, first off, I think the best thing to do is to get you guys to introduce yourselves so that everybody knows who is speaking, although there's a guy and a girl, so that makes it a little bit easier. But if you could tell me a little bit about yourselves and how you got into this business, because it wasn't on purpose necessarily.
No, not really on purpose. My name is Shayda Frost, and I am a co-owner of Lincoln Memorial Group, which is a group of 6 cemeteries. 4 are functioning to our non-perpetual care in the Atlanta area. I'm 3rd-generation cemeterian, so my family has owned cemeteries and operated cemeteries since the 60s. But this was never truly the intention. And until 3 years ago, I had never worked in the space. This was led to, unfortunately, this was a result of my father very suddenly passing away. And from one day to the next, these businesses kind of dropped in our laps. And my husband and I had a very long conversation about whether or not we were up to the challenge. And so my husband is Tim. Tim, do you want to introduce?
Yes, absolutely. So my name's Timothy Amoui. And I'm the co-owner of Lincoln Memorial Group with my wife, Shayda Frost. And like Shayda said, we were inadvertent successes in a way. We fell into the cemetery industry. We're specifically in cemeteries. We don't own funeral homes. We have 6 cemeteries in inner city Atlanta, spanning about 250 acres in land. We 3 years ago decided to uproot our lives. I'm a Brit, but I lived with Shayda, my wife, in LA, had totally different careers. Couldn't be more the opposite if we tried. and we decided, following the sadness of Shayda's dad's passing and not having a full succession plan, ironically, being in the death care space, he didn't, that we needed to step in, and we ended up looking at each other and actually said, do you know what? Let's be cemetery owners. And we haven't really looked back since. It's been, 3 years and today. And we have not looked back, and we've embraced it, and we've loved every single second of being in this industry.
That is the most bananas part, is to decide to jump in. As Shayda pointed out, and when we were talking before the show, you didn't have a ton of choices, because if you decided to sell it, it was going to be, just as I think she said, fire sale. So I'll say fire sale.
It would have been a fire sale. Yeah. Just to give a little context, the space itself had run very well. My grandmother had run the space my grandfather and grandmother, when they were married, they bought the space in 1969 out of receivership. It was in bankruptcy, so they bought it out from a bank. And then they divorced in the early 70s, I'd say like 73-ish. And to my grandmother's credit, she said, I don't want child support. I don't want alimony. I want Lincoln. And in a time when women couldn't even get bank accounts, it was just crazy to think that a woman could run her own business. And she did it. And she did it very well for many, many decades. unfortunately, towards the latter part of her life, she aged and she had a little touch of Alzheimer's. And so the business itself did decline. My father ended up taking over in the last couple of years of his life, and he passed very suddenly, but he was battling cancer. And so he wasn't a super present owner operator. And so for many years prior to Tim and I coming on, it was kind of just the ship that ran itself. And so, yes, it was stable and it was running, but it was certainly declining. And so the decline was happening over many years, decline in standard, decline in revenue. And so when we got it, we were like, oh my gosh, we saw the potential of what it could be because we knew what it had been, but it certainly was not in that state when we came in day one. And so there was a big conversation of like, we'd, spoken to also industry professionals and different companies that do handle like sales of these types of businesses in this space. And they were pretty pessimistic on it. And they're the ones that use the words fire sale. So we knew what we were up against coming into it. And we thought, like, we know the opportunity, but is that an opportunity that like we can take on? And I think to Tim's credit, because he was like, he was bullish on it. He's like, we can do this. Let's go.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We did have consulting partners that Shayda and I brought in. Like
we were like, what do we do?
What are we doing? and they were actually, in fact, by putting fear in us, it actually gave us the energy to realize this is what we want to do. We had a tremendous responsibility because although the business was challenged when we took over, there's no doubt about that. It was a very large responsibility because we owned a lot of land. It was a success. It still is a very successful cemetery operation in Atlanta, but we knew that it couldn't be absentee managed anymore. And it had been absentee managed for quite a while. So the scary bit for us was obviously making the decision very quickly that actually this is what we want to do now. This is our new career, but also getting to grips that we are not operators. And we had no operational experience at all.
We don't know what we don't know. And we were very clear from day one.
Correct. So we focused very quickly on a stabilization mission where we were like, let's stabilize this operation. Let's make sure that it can run fluidly and make sure that the challenges or the issues are not, they're not coming up every single day anymore. Let's get those out, get those crinkles out. And then let's bring in a best-in-class team that do know what they're doing. and we did that. And we have to be thankful in a way that, yes, Shayda and I made those good decisions, but the business fundamentally was strong enough to make those heights. And that was the business that we were working with. And we recognize that not always, the rural cemetery may not have that ability to do that. We did, but we did make the right decisions very quickly to stabilize the ship.
Yeah. And just real quick for Shayda, what were your grandparents' names? Because we just
sure, yeah. My grandmother, her name was Joan Sawyer, and she's originally from Tennessee, Elizabethton, Tennessee, small town, and moved to Atlanta in, I want to say, the 50s with my grandfather, who was Jack Frost the First. And
you don't forget that name.
Yeah. So grandfather was Jack Frost the First. My father was Jack Frost the Second. Had I been a boy, you can guess what my name would be. But yeah, and actually, Jack Frost the First is very well known in this industry because when I mentioned the divorce and when Joan got this cemetery, specifically Lincoln, I want to say it might have been their first purchase together, and it certainly was their largest if it wasn't the first. But my grandfather then went on after the divorce to become somewhat of a cemetery flipper across the country, actually. So he would go in and buy distressed cemeteries, either out of bankruptcy from banks or out of receivership from the state, put in a very fantastic sales team and a sales program, up the standard, up the care, and then turn around and sell it to a consolidator like an SCI, or at the time it was like Lowen Group, was really big in the 80s, 90s. And so he did that over 130 times across the US. And so when you speak in these small spaces of death care, if you say Jack Frost, like they know who he is, because at some point it feels like everyone worked with them at one point or another.
I joke all the time that they talk, when they bump into Shayda and they realize who she is at industry conferences, they talk as if she's Harry Potter.
Weird.
Like, oh my God, you're Jack Frost's granddaughter.
It's a very funny place to be. And I used to work in entertainment. And so being this weird celebrity in this odd space, in this very, very small space, I'm like, this is not what I thought life would be. It's a very different envisioning of life.
That's your t-shirt can say I'm cemetery famous.
There it is. I think that's a great slogan. I'm cemetery famous.
But kind of along those lines, so you just told me the story about a thumbnail sketch about your grandfather, but you pointed out that his specialty was kind of doing this turnaround, he could find the value in things. So that must have at least informed you a little bit when you decided to take on this challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that both, it's interesting because both my grandfather and my father, cemeteries is divided into essentially three categories, three divisions of work, right? It's maintenance, sales, and administration. And so both my father and my grandfather were very heavy sales guys, incredibly experienced and incredibly gifted in that. They were incredibly charismatic people too, which was to their benefit,
Yeah.
My grandmother was really, really detailed, and she was super focused in the administration arm. And so it was a really cool thing to witness that your skill set kind of transcends in different ways. And I think that that's actually what's happened with Tim and I in terms of how we go about operating the space is your natural skill set and your natural inclinations will kind of fit in different areas. And so there wasn't necessarily a blueprint that we got from the family by any means, but it was definitely oh, they leaned into a skill set and we can do the same. So for example, I have gone a little bit more heavily in the administration and oddly enough, which I didn't expect out of myself, into the maintenance area. So I'm really big into landscape architecture, landscape design, which I don't have a background in it. I just like it. I enjoy it and I'm curious about it. And so coming in, I love working with our head groundskeeper because there's a big element of yes, we do open and closes and we do inventory management, but there's also a beautification side, which I didn't know was in my wheelhouse until I just started kind of doing it.
Yeah, and I'll say on the opportunity, as we joked that Shayda is Harry Potter, and I was a true outsider in this weird world. I would say the day Shayda brought me from London to Atlanta to visit her family, and I'm talking it was only a couple of months of us dating.
Yeah, it was 15 years.
She kind of warned me on the plane. She was like, oh, by the way, you do know that my family's in this business and they own cemeteries. And all of a sudden I was getting even more scared of what I'd signed up to. But I won't lie, after stepping foot in Atlanta and visiting their cemeteries, and actually Jack Frost the first in the end had funeral homes and cemeteries. He created combos up in North Georgia. It was immediate what this industry had provided them in terms of quality of life, in terms of the opportunities, in terms of just the love of this industry. They would talk about regularly being part of the GTA or the Southern and how important that meant to them and being involved in politics. And it really gave them stature and a feeling of being part of something much larger.
And giving back to the community. I do think that my grandmother, she was very highly involved in local politics and community level politics and community level organization events. Because she wanted this area to come to this space. And I say this a lot, right? Where I think it's one of my mantras that cemeteries are for the living. I know that seems a little weird, but when after you have passed and you've made those plans and you're laid to rest and you have this place, your family is the one coming to experience it, right? They are the ones coming to visit you, to commune, to mourn. And I also feel like I think, and I take this as a cue from my grandmother, that it's not just a place of sadness and mourning. It can also be a place of joy and memory creation. And so by hosting these events and engaging with the community, you sit there and go, I know your aunt or whomever, let's say, for an example, your aunt is here. I know you miss her, but come commune, come have a good experience with the cemetery. And that will help this grieving process, that you're creating new memories with your aunt, even though she's no longer with us. So I believe that cemetery is for the people left behind.
And I wonder how much that's informed your attraction to the grounds maintenance.
Possibly quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we realized that the one thing that doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize very quickly that your number one brand asset is your grounds as a cemetery owner.
Yeah, and your reputation.
100%. Your reputation is driven by the look of the grounds. And when we
And the
stepped in,
experience people have here. Yeah.
when we stepped in day one, we realized very quickly it just wasn't up to par anymore. And that was the immediate thing that we knew we could do. And it was very tangible, right? You just get out in the grounds, you start investing in the grounds, whether, you're adding more machinery so it enables your grounds people to be able to do a better job, or, just making sure that flowers, everything is about what the grounds look like. And we have prided ourselves on improving the grounds, not just at Lincoln, but like we say, we have
Yeah.
6 other cemeteries, and that's really one of our largest investments today. Is in our grounds and maintenance area and our people.
I won't lie, waking up one day to the next and you have this like very sobering realization of like, oh my gosh, we need to buy a backhoe today. That's just not a conversation you usually have.
I love the notion that 5 years ago you couldn't guess what a backhoe would cost, and now you can.
Oh no, now I can tell you off the cuff and how to finance it if you need to.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's one of the particular things. Again, we talked a little bit in the pre-interview about this. Is you're coming in and you're like, okay, we're going to go from let's try to keep from getting worse to let's get a lot better and put this, back on the path to more efficient growth, I guess. And you had a lot of long-term employees that were already kind of set in their ways in an industry that's notoriously set in its ways, in an area of the country that's notoriously set in its ways. So you have this like pow, pow, pow. I don't want to say wall, but I want to say, you had your work cut out for you. So how did you approach that? And what were your successes and what did you learn?
Well, some days it did feel like a wall. Like some days it still feels like a wall. I think that my biggest thing, because I'm not sure if we mentioned it in the call prior or recently, people are the biggest investment that you can make and should make. And as mentioned, everyone that worked for us had worked for us for at least 10 years, if not up to 40. So we've had a varying range. And for us, we felt very protectionist to say, these people have given so much loyalty to this space, this community, and frankly, my family. So we wanted to, as much as possible, say, hey, let's work with you. My only thing was there has to be a willingness to take it on, right? So when we walked in day one, no one had email. They had this memo, paper memo situation in little mailboxes. And then there was an intercom system, and it was very loud and very disruptive, particularly to client families in the room. And you just hear this intercom going off intermittently. It was kind of, it was 1976,
Right.
From the decor to the practices. And so day one, we were like, we should get a company email. We're going to get everyone situated with their own. And then it was a matter of, guys, I need you to use it. So it was very much bring the tools, provide the tools, and then encourage people to use the tools. And then the second that the majority do, my God, how much easier their lives can get, how much cleaner it is, how much less paper there is around. The intercom was, we disbanded it. It's done now. Thank goodness. It's a lot more of a calm environment. And the communication increased exponentially. So it wasn't so much like oh my God, how do I get this archaic business to change overnight? It's one tool at a time and saying, just give me open-mindedness and willingness to try it out, because I promise I wouldn't make you do something different or hard just for the sake of doing different and hard.
Right.
I want to make you do something because it will benefit you. And so far, it's really been, we're just now introducing digital contracts, and it's been a little bit of a rocky road, but can I tell you the enthusiasm? In terms of the actual usage, it's been a little rocky. We're still learning. A lot of people, I'm sitting in one-on-one sessions and teaching people how to use this and how to efficiently and legally use it, right? But the benefit, everyone sees a benefit and they all want to do it. And so I think that's what we need. That's the only thing we're looking for is willingness.
Yeah, I would say definitely culture was the hardest piece for us to fix day one. Obviously, being from the outside of the industry, we were scratching our head how a business today couldn't have an email.
Right.
Oh, but they functioned.
But I'll say this to speak for cemetery professionals today and say how lucky. That just shows you how resilient this space is, that it doesn't have to adapt to change, unlike other industries. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't change. Change is very, very important. And if we rest on our laurels, actually, that's what's going to cause problems for this industry long term. It's going to creep up on us until it's too late.
You will be left behind.
But we will be left behind. But I will say another advantage of being in the funeral and cemetery profession is that it is not like tech where the latest technology comes out and, that's now outdated. That's not in use anymore. We've all moved on to the next shiny new toy. Instead, in this space, things move much slower. But the big but is you do not need to put plans in place to slowly change and improve your operation over time. Now, Shayda and I had age on our side. And we've leaned into the fact that we don't need to be hyper-focused on, we can make investments today, and let's just hope that our investments
pay off in 10, 15 years.
Pay off in 10, 15 years because we've made those decisions. We are a family-owned business. We will always be that. But I think through this long-term thinking and long-term horizon of the way we approach this space, we just want this business to be a better business than when we initially took over. Yeah. That is what drives us to work every single day, is that when this business, because there will be a time, whether we like it or not, that we will be buried at this cemetery. We want this cemetery to be a better business than when we first took over.
Yeah, I think that was actually one of the very sobering lessons when we first took on. It was a lesson and a learning, I think, was this is not like any other business or space or industry. This space has to live well past us. So we're not there are many times I don't even think of us as owners. I think of us as like stewards or like custodians. Like we're taking care of it for a time because it will live in perpetuity. That's the point, right? Like it will live forever. We can't. So who knows what will come after us, but if we can set it up for long-term success, that's what success looks like for us.
Tell me about a lesson that you learned the hard way so far.
Many.
Too many.
You know what? The lesson that always, punches me in the face, right, is that when you take over a business or you're running a business, you're a small business owner, you kind of go, how do I get the best price for everything? Or you can get obsessed with trying to hustle on price, whether that's with a vendor or with a supplier, because ultimately you want to make a margin in business, right? You want to turn a profit. But I will say the biggest lesson for me has been don't always focus on price, meaning lowest price wins.
No.
I will say that has been the number one thing that has got us into trouble. And I'll say us, I'll speak for us, Shayda, but it's predominantly me.
No. But it's us. You're trying to be like, it's the lower price. So it's us being responsible. And, either the service provided or the quality of the item or whatever it is like not up to par, is shoddy in a way that you're like, oh my God, now I've wasted this because I have to go back and fix it.
Right. Yeah, there's a difference between price and value. And people use that term a lot. Like it could sound a little fluffy, but it's very, very true. Like we've been building out our grounds. So we've been doing a lot of land development, and there would have been decisions that I would have made on land development side that, let's just say, without getting me in too much trouble, I would have been a lot more careful in making those decisions if I was to do it again. Yeah. So yes, you live and you learn. You live and you learn, and you realize very quickly that actually doing things the right way may be expensive to begin with. Still not being proven wrong now that it's not been the best decision long term. So I think for Shayda and I, we now look in when we're making those decisions. In fact, we scrutinize our own decisions a lot more, and we try and not make heat of the moment decisions, or just because someone's in front of you, because maybe they're the nicest person that's trying to get a sale out of you, to just go, you know what, let's do it. In fact, we'll sit back, take a big breath, maybe go back home, talk over dinner, because we never stop talking about this business, and then we'll come back and then finally make a decision. So yeah, there's been many things that we have learned, and we continue to learn, and will for the foreseeable future. But this part of the journey, they say.
we had also talked a little bit about this beforehand, and I want to bring it back up. We touched on it a couple seconds ago, honestly, but you were talking about changing in the cemetery and how I don't know if cemeteries and funeral in general are so much less immune to change. It's that you were able to miss that first big boom where everybody did have to run around catching up. And now you can take things at your leisure, but it's also something that you have to teach people to embrace, and you came in at a time when the industry was starting to say, oh, you know what, maybe we can change. And you were also coming in as potential agents of change. So how did that work out for you in a good way, and how did that work out for you in a bad way, if there were either?
Let me lead with a learning on change.
All right.
You can sometimes come in as the new person in town and actually want to try and change everything. And the real reason you're trying to change everything is because you actually don't have a sense of control. And it comes down to control because you're learning new systems, you're learning new ways of doing things. Granted, they were the old ways of doing things, but you don't fully understand it.
So you're like, oh, let's adapt to me.
Right.
That really is not always the answer.
100%.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest headaches that have caused us sleepless nights has been trying to take on too much too quickly when it comes to integrations and changing our systems. And it could be as simple as changing our accounting software, for instance, or maybe a little bit more complicated or a lot more complicated, our cemetery software. But trying to do it all at once and realizing very quickly that you only have limited resources, right? The big companies out there, you forget, have massive, massive teams in head offices to run these change management programs, and they also get it wrong. So when you think about it through that lens, it's important to take a big step back and make sure that you can focus on the priorities. And for us in this business, our priorities number one was absolutely stabilization, but also recognizing that we couldn't live like we were in the 1970s and 80s and continue to grow.
Well, it got to the point where we quickly realized, the way that it had worked before had been working, but we were reaching kind of a precipice where, particularly when trying to draw in some new talent, we were hitting a roadblock because what do you mean things aren't digitized? What do you mean I'm doing everything by paper and filing by paper and handwriting everything out and literally using a calculator to calculate out all of my contracting? And so it became a hindrance. It became something that did work. So, again, change for change's sake is not what we're looking to do. And I think that is something that if you have to be very honest with yourself, is that what I'm doing? Do I not feel in control? So I'm trying to change a system that already works just fine. And if the answer is it works just fine and it can continue to work just fine, then keep it as it is because it's working. But if it is problematic, or if there is a trend to say, actually, this is preventing you from bringing in new talent as well, then maybe we need to adapt. Then maybe we are at this precipice and we do have to digitize all of our records, which was a very painful decision to make because that is not a cheap thing to do, digitizing hundreds of thousands of records. And do many cemeteries get along without doing it? Absolutely. Do I think that's our way forward? No, I think our way forward is to have access within a cloud and for people to be able to seamlessly do their jobs with ease. And so that's why we're like, all right, let's do it. Also, realistically, if our file room caught fire, we would be in so much trouble. Oh my God. So there's a safety measure to it as well. But yeah, in terms of agents of change, I think you need a question what is the motivation behind doing this? And does it actually serve long term? And if the answer is yes, then go for it. And if the answer is, well, it looks better, or you'll feel better about it, well, then maybe you need to question that motivation.
I feel so. I walk around my office, and I'm like, all right, it's time to change the office. I'm like, no, you have work to do. There's, you want to change it because if you change the office, then you've done something, and you can feel like you've accomplished something.
But have you accomplished is the question. Yeah.
Looking at different of the four walls is not really improving my life.
Listen, if it motivates you and if it increases your efficiencies and increases, it betters your day, well, then you have accomplished something. So you have to really look at it in terms of, you have to be honest and say, is this going to make it better? And if the answer is yes, then let's pursue.
Very cool. And we are not running up against it, but I'd like to start to wind things down. I do want to ask, what does the future look like? You said you're starting to look at these two. The romantic in me would love to randomly inherit two defunct cemeteries to play with. But practically, I wouldn't want to have to do anything about it.
Well, the romantic in you is the romantic in me. And I think of these spaces as like these forlorn, forgotten, historic spaces of just beauty. And they are, specifically Hollywood is 70 acres of forest in the middle of metro Atlanta. It's untouched. We have some advocacy groups that are really passionate, particularly about like the flora that grows there, the flora, the fauna. And we have these amazing ecologists and botanists that have come to speak with us and basically begging us, like, don't cut this down. It's a second seed forest, it's a second growth forest. And so they have these like specimens of plant life that don't even exist in the Georgia National Forest, which is just crazy that, we're in the metro Atlanta and here are these insane specimens of plant life and trees and just insane, beautiful, beautiful growth. Now, the problem with that is it's not open green space. Like there's no utilization, there's no community. It's literally untouched, and it should be because actually it's kind of dangerous to traverse, right? So it is abandoned, it is neglected, and the other, bad side of this is that we do get dumping on it. So we get a lot of like trash dumping and things, and it's just super, super unfortunate because it's non-perpetual, and it was always non-perpetual. My grandmother, Joan, she had taken these over when they were already abandoned. So there's no money, there's no business, you can't sell on it. It's just raw land that you actually can't do anything with. And so we've partnered with certain groups. We partner with the Chattahoochee River Keepers and with this lovely smaller charity, Divine Georgia. And so the Chattahoochee River Keep, we've done a few different cleans over the last 2 years. I think we've done maybe 10 or 11 with them, where local community will come and we just pick up trash. Because the other unfortunate thing is literally next to Hollywood on top of the hill, the city of Atlanta had opened up a landfill in the 80s. And so I don't actually know when it was opened, but it was filled in the 80s. Doesn't stop people dumping still to this day. And so we have a lot of wonderfully passionate activists that will come and help us, on occasion clean and do trash pickup. And then Divine is dedicated to devining invasive plant life species. So like the kudzu and the wisteria that choke out the trees and kill forestry. So that's their kind of mission. So we've partnered with them. We go out and we help them and we donate every chance we get. But I mean, realistically, this is not an income generative space. And I think, we've gotten a lot of praise for the work that we do. And then we've gotten some criticism saying, pay people. And the answer is I've literally got no money for this. So our big goal is to figure out some way to create some generative income for the space. We are not looking to make money. If we can create a space that can generate any income whatsoever, very happily, I'm willing to pay the labor, obviously those people who do the work, but then put everything else into a trust so that it can have its own perpetual care and start paying for itself. Like that's the big goal. And so I think that the way that we can do this, Tim's come up with a bit of a plan.
The way we're doing it, and it actually touches on some of the growth opportunities for the broader group as we look forward. We want to launch the first natural burial ground as an adaptive reuse project of an existing historic cemetery
in the city of Atlanta,
using Hollywood as our first reimagined space, which is why we've been working with community groups, because they're so passionate about ecological factors and they want to make sure that the environment is a key focus area. And everyone we've thrown that idea with, given the restraints of it only being a cemetery and will forever be a cemetery, is we've come up with this natural burial ground idea. So we've started clearing land very, very carefully, because obviously you've got to keep it through the land.
Actually, I would say it's more cleaning land.
Cleaning land.
Not We're certainly not clearing the land.
Yeah, otherwise the Green Burial Council
clean.
upset with me.
Yeah.
You're clearing it of mattresses, not of trees.
Of mattresses and like invasive species is what we're doing.
Oh yeah, it's been sadly a dumping ground for many years. So that's been something that's really for us. That's really a passion project for me and Shayda. Like Shayda says, it doesn't make us any money. It's really
There's literally not $1
it's just something that
over this.
We've always joked that Shayda was a filmmaker and wanted to make it in Hollywood, and we joked that this is
maybe
her way
this is Hollywood.
of her making her Hollywood career a Hollywood career. So we've been, focused on trying to turn that into something special again with Hollywood. And then for us, we've also got some of the more, could you say, conventional playbooks that we're looking to apply, including comboing our cemeteries, building a funeral home on them. That's been something that we've been working on since we've come on board. It's not a quick process by any means, but we see
longer term
the real value in being a combo, especially given the scale of our cemetery properties and how many services we do a year, to be able to tap into that. And then we remain open to actually taking on, would you believe, other cemeteries and doing other cemetery acquisitions.
Are we crazy?
Wow.
Potentially are very, very crazy. And we want to do it in a really careful way. We want to make sure that it's super organic, meaning it's cemeteries that are very close to us. We're not looking to scale to go back to California to acquire funeral homes.
Or even
like
Augusta. No, it has to be synergetic towards what our goals are and in our area. And we have to also make sure that we have the capacity. So we're open to that.
Totally. And so that for us with, embracing digital, bringing the business maybe from, let's just say, maybe 1990 to the year 2015. 15.
That would be, 10, 15. That would be.
Embracing natural and green burial, potentially looking at other cemetery acquisitions so we could apply, what me and Shayda have learned over the last 3 years of going into a cemetery. We had no idea how to operate and actually going, do you know what? We can turn around other spaces that are really struggling right now, because they sadly are. And then looking to definitely focus on a combo approach for us, for our largest cemetery. We see serious value in that.
We also see in terms of the idea of even local acquisition, if that's a potential for us, you see a lot of these cemeteries that they're struggling with succession plans. And this place was too, right? So there are these owners that perhaps are aging out, or they're reaching a time when they're saying, I'd like to retire. And a lot of times the kids don't want it, or the kids like me have a different career and aren't looking to take it over, because that was me, right?
Right.
And so then what happens to these spaces? And either they're bought up by a consolidator or they fall into receivership, or you have someone that's family locally owned and said, you know what, actually I can see a path forward for this. But the big fear obviously is the receivership and the abandonment. No one wants that. That's truly when a cemetery fails. Our big thing is we certainly don't have a playbook. We know the decisions we've made, not all of them have been right. Some of them I hope we've gotten right. Some of them we know we've gotten wrong. But if there was anyone in the space that is interested in looking to do this type of thing and say, hey, I need to put a succession plan together, or I have interest from someone, look, talk to us. We're happy to share ideas.
We're happy to do a seminar called Help. We just inherited a seminar.
Help. And now, granted, can you say we're 100% successful at this? No, but we learned some things. So
fantastic. Well, that kind of brings us up against it. So thank you so much for your time. Do you have any final thoughts? Something you thought you'd get the chance to say, but I didn't provide it?
I feel like you touched on quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we just really appreciate being able to tell our story.
Thanks for the interest, honestly.
Thanks for the interest and the ability to tell our story. And we really hope with some of the things that if we could get one or two people that maybe even in our similar situation to us, or they may actually already be in the funeral and cemetery space, but reluctant to take the move or the next step to going to run something, that actually you never are ready in life. No matter how well you think you're either situated or not situated to take over something, and really just jumping in and just embracing it is the best way forward. because actually passion can get you a long way in life. In fact, passion and enthusiasm can get you 90% of the way. And if you surround yourself with really good people, then I'm going to say
I would say that's the other learning is very much recognize what you don't know and then supplement with people that do.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I want to talk again about the natural cemetery. We're going to have to do a separate show on that.
Oh
But
my
when you
gosh,
get a little bit
yes.
farther, please reach
It's a
out because
passion of ours. We're so interested and we've been working on it for about 2 years now. So like anytime, please call us back.
very
thanks so
cool.
much, Tony.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Tony.
There are links in the show notes to all of the things we mentioned, and including the nonprofits that are helping them out there with the trying to retake some of the overgrown cemeteries. I know that it's as Shayda mentioned, it can be difficult to rely so heavily on volunteers, but it's also, I mean, I've done, I don't know, 10 or 15 stories on people who volunteer at cemeteries, and they're just special people. They really like cemeteries, and they really like gardening, or they really like preservation, and they really like history. Is just great people doing great work. And I don't, anyone who's a cemeterian knows that that these volunteers are really, really important. And I'm just excited to see where all of this goes. So I will definitely be checking in with these folks. And like I said, you should check out Lincoln Memorial and all the other things that they were talking about, the Riverkeeper and the Divine. I get a huge kick out of. That's a great name, but that's in the show notes. All right, and that'll do it for this week. This has been an On Death Care production. Everything was written by me, performed by me, edited by me, Tony Russo. As always, a special thanks to my paid subscribers who let me get through all of this and do all these crazy stories that I love so much and that you guys seem to love so much. Please consider becoming a free or paid subscriber to On Death Care, and I will check in with you next time.